Okay, so I know I said just recently that it would be extremely dangerous for me to fly to Homeworld territory, let alone to Homeworld itself. But after that last episode, I kind of just had to see it for myself, you know? Like, obviously this isn't the version of Homeworld that Steven's on right now, this is one from our reality, not his. But that doesn't make it any less dangerous or any less intriguing. I mean, look at it out there, seemingly being held together by a single person, quite literally. But only in the end having to be held together in the first place because of the actions of the people that person commands. Planets don't just crack in half like this. Something must have happened to the planet to make it weak enough for this to happen. And the only thing that I can think of that would cause that problem is just severe overmining. Or, I guess in the case of gems, severe overproduction of gems. The planet's resources were sucked dry so completely, it was hollowed out so completely that it lost its structural integrity. And maybe that was enough to break it up on its own, or maybe some small natural disaster occurred, which normally wouldn't have caused this much damage, but did in this case. But one way or another, it seems that it was the lack of foresight on the part of the Diamond Authority which caused this to happen. And there are plenty of questions we can ask as a result of this, like, why don't they just abandon Homeworld for one of their other colonies, if things are so bad there? But honestly, what I find far more interesting is literally just the question of White Diamond herself. She is just such an odd character, cold and distant and dismissive in a way that no other character has ever been in this show before. She seems to lack any real capacity to make a connection with others, as well as any form of emotional attachment at all, and doesn't even seem to mind the fact that she seems to be held in place by the necessity of her keeping the planet together. She doesn't seem to care about it at all, as if just being in control is enough for her, or even as if holding the planet together herself makes her feel more powerful and she gets satisfaction from that. Like, I know a lot of people have been saying that she seems like she's mentally impaired in some way, but I don't think that's the case. I just think that she's a cold and dismissive person who gets some amount of satisfaction from treating people coldly and dismissively. She actually reminds me more of an abusive parent, and believe me, I have the experience to back that up. And like, I know I've said before that I hate people making the analogy between gems and familial relationships, but that doesn't mean that we can't make a comparison between them and family-like relationships. White just gives off this very sinister maternal energy. And if it just stopped there, if her portrayal just stopped there, she would already be an interesting enough and dislikable enough antagonist. But that isn't where it stopped. That isn't where her characterization ends, because there's stuff in the background that adds to it. First of all, the inflection that Christine Ebersole, I think is how you pronounce her name, the voice actor for White Diamond, puts into her voice. The inflections that she puts into her voice sound artificial, both in that they literally sound kind of artificial, but also because they come across as the tone of voice that someone would use if they were trying to convey emotions that they didn't actually ever feel, that they had no actual experience with feeling. She sounds like an actor, someone who is playing the role of someone who actually gives a damn about this person that she's talking to. That paints the picture of a potential straight-up sociopath. And while I have said in the past that I think Rose showed some sociopathic tendencies in that it didn't feel like she could feel empathy, I wouldn't say she was a straight-up sociopath. I would say, though, that White might be. And there's definitely other stuff in this episode to suggest that. I talked about this a bit in my review of Legs from Here to Homeworld, but if you look at White Diamond's Pearl, it's clear that something's not right with her. Yeah, her rigidness and the cracks on her body contribute to the entire aesthetic of her and White Diamond as ancient characters. So thematically they work, thematically they make sense. But there has to be a practical reason for those things in the series, too. And the only practical reason for a gem to have physical damage, permanent physical damage to their holographic body, is if there is permanent damage to the information on their gem. The fact that she seems to float around in what is known as a T-pose supports this as well. If you look at Skyrim, for example, just going with one that I know well myself. If one of the NPCs in Skyrim, if their scripts are broken or damaged, they may go rigid in a T-pose and start floating around in an approximation of their daily routine. They will still be able to speak and interact with people, but their movements will be frozen in that exact same position. This suggests to me that White Pearl's behavior is an intentional reference to something like that, which further suggests to me that the scripts, or rather the information on her gem, is damaged, is broken. Couple that with the fact that she speaks with her diamond's voice. She is the only pearl to speak with her owner's voice. And I think it's clear that White Diamond has done something horrible to her. Even the other diamonds, when they see her, seem repulsed by her mere presence, as if what was done to her is despicable, is unthinkable even to them. As if the thought of what has been done to White Pearl frightens them, and considering how little sympathy they have for gems who aren't diamonds, that really says something. And while it is possible, considering that pearls tend to be customized to their owner's wishes in general, that White Diamond just wanted her pearl to be just like her, and so kept modifying her until it broke her. While that is certainly possible, and I'd say even plausible, given the way that White Diamond seems to behave, there is one other intriguing thing about this pearl that has got me thinking that there might be more to it than that. Now keep in mind that I fully acknowledge that the theory that pearls have the same gem placements as their owners is just a theory.
A game theory!
One which seemed to be disproved by the fact that our pearl, the main character pearl, was Pink Diamond's pearl, and yet their gem placements aren't the same. But to then see White Diamond's pearl and see that she has the same gem placement as Pink Diamond is really interesting in light of the fact that that theory exists, and the crew undoubtedly knew that it existed when they were making this episode. The Crewniverse are a bunch of cheeky bastards. I guarantee that gem placement exists for a reason. If you allow me a brief aside, which does contribute to this line of thinking, I promise, I'd like to engage in a bit of a thought experiment. Now that we have the gem shapes of all of the diamonds, and yes, even though it's hard to see, we do see White Diamond's gem, and this is its correct shape, we can now assemble all 4 of their gemstones into something resembling the Diamond Authority insignia. And a lot of people have been doing so, showing something like this, which is not entirely accurate to how their gems are shaped. So I put together this mock-up here. It's not entirely symmetrical, it's not entirely even, the gaps aren't entirely filled, but that doesn't really mean anything. The gems still, at least tentatively, fit into the places that they're supposed to fit into. But despite that, assembling them like this is kind of odd because they don't really resemble that insignia all that much in terms of shape. The shape that they make, it doesn't resemble that traditional rhombus shape that people typically associate with diamonds. Not only that, but Blue Diamond's gem fits best in this arrangement if you turn it on its side, and that's just a really odd thing to do considering that all the other gemstones are properly oriented here. But there is a way to rearrange these gemstones so that they make that rhombus-like shape, at least more closely than this, without having to change the orientation of any of them. Even Blue's gem fits pretty well in this hypothetical arrangement without having to rotate it at all, and it's really as simple as switching the positions of Pink and White's gemstones in this arrangement, putting Pink at the top, as the top point of the diamond, which is in line with the way that her gemstone was oriented. Which presents a problem. White Diamond is at the top of the insignia because she is at the top of the Diamond Authority. We know that for sure now. But it's still interesting, isn't it? I mean, the insignia had to come from something, so if it wasn't from them arranging their gemstones together, then what was it from? Because you don't get a rhombus shape from this first arrangement. You just don't. You only get it from this one. So here's what I'm proposing. Based on the damage done to White Pearl, it does seem as if White Diamond has some ability to affect not like the mind of the gem's physical body, but their literal mind, the information on the gemstone itself. I still think it's unlikely that she can do this at will to anyone from a distance, otherwise there wouldn't have been a rebellion. But even then, maybe she let the rebellion happen because she was letting Pink get it out of her system, quote unquote, as she said in Legs from Here to Homeworld in the first place. But I still think that that is at least one of her powers and what she contributed to the corruption attack. That while the other diamonds can affect the physical bodies, the projected bodies of gems, White Diamond can affect the information on those gems and make the changes to the gem's physical body permanent in the information. She can rewrite the information on their gem to reflect the changes to their physical form. I think that's what she's going to end up contributing to the cure for corruption too. That Blue, Yellow, and Steven will have to reverse the damage to the physical form of the gem, and then White Diamond will have to make that change permanent and rewrite it onto the gemstone, turning them back to normal. Which is assuming that they ever get hurt to help them, but even if they don't, there's probably a way to simulate this ability artificially, so I still think the corrupted gems are going to get cured. Let's just put it that way. If this is true, though, if this is what White Diamond brought to the table in terms of the corruption attack, even if we assume that this is a power that she can only use in close quarters when she's let's say in direct contact with a gemstone. Maybe combining that power with blue and yellow's powers let her reverse the polarity of the neutron flow and transmit it along the carrier wave from their abilities or something. It's just, I can't think of any other reason why they would need White Diamond to fix the damage to the corrupted gems permanently, and I can't think of any other way that she could have done such extensive damage to her pearl. And if we consider that this may be a power that she has, that she may be able to permanently rewrite the information on gemstones, that means she has the capacity to alter the memory on gemstones as well. So here's what I'm proposing. I think that Pink Diamond used to be the leader of Homeworld. And yes, I know how ridiculous that sounds, just stick with me. I promise this will make sense, at least my kind of sense, by the time I'm finished. I think that at one point it was White Diamond, not Pink Diamond, who was either the youngest or the least experienced or the least trusted of all the diamonds, or all three, really, are possible, but that she didn't like that. She wanted more power and influence because those were the things which gave her satisfaction. And so, being close to the other diamonds and having the ability to alter the information on gemstones permanently, I think she waited for and then seized an opportunity to change things up. That she rewrote the information on her fellow diamonds' gemstones so that none of them remembered the way the authority used to be structured, and considering to other gems from the outside, all of the diamonds seem like one unit, none of them would really be any of the wiser. This would necessitate that instances of the diamond insignia be replaced with ones that were reversed, but honestly I don't think that would be too difficult to pull off, since a lot of gem structures seem to be either made of stone, which can be replaced, or to be pretty modular and customizable. And if anyone did notice the change up in the leadership structure, that could be controlled with propaganda, which is something that we already know that Homeworld is very good at. If this is true, it explains so much. If we assume that blue and yellow diamond are, as they appear, about mid-tier within the structure of the authority, then they wouldn't have had to have been altered all that much. They would have just had to have had their original memories of who was actually in charge removed. But Pink, being the diamond of diamonds in this scenario, would have had to have been altered greatly, which explains her childish behavior. So much of what she was had to be removed that she ended up a less mature person than she would have been otherwise. It explains the longing for something different which she is implied to have by White's statement that this rebellion was just the latest of her quote-unquote little games. It fits with this more satisfying mock-up of the insignia, and even explains why White Diamond's pearl has a gemstone on her stomach, as you would expect Pink Diamond's pearl to, and why her clothing even resembles Pink's rather than White's. We do know that a diamond's pearl carries out some tasks for her diamond. What if being the pearl to the leader of the Diamond Authority meant that Pink's pearl, now White's pearl, had far more responsibility than any other pearl did, and so keeping her around just made sense? But maybe she wasn't willing to just blindly follow White Diamond's orders, or White Diamond just wanted to customize her so much that it removed any evidence that Pink used to be her owner. And so White modified her heavily so that she could still do her job, but so that nothing of what she used to be remained. It even explains the placement of Pearl's pearl, since in this scenario Pearl would have been originally White Diamond's pearl, given to Pink when the two of them switched roles. Her memory changed and removed as well. Alterations to her mind might even explain why Pearl has so many layers to her mind, because her mind was, in some limited way, broken by what White Diamond did. It's pretty crazy, but I also think pretty possible, and will become more and more possible if my suspicions regarding what White's specific power over corruption turn out to be true. I know this theory overall sounds ridiculous, and maybe White Diamond and her pearl just creeped me out enough that this sounds more feasible to me than it even actually is. But White Diamond and her pearl still creeped me out enough that I find this feasible. And me being someone who doesn't scare easily, that's saying something. But that's really all I have to say about this particular theory, which seems like a good thing because it looks like I have company. Great. What do you guys think of this theory? Have I managed to assemble a complete picture, or do you think I've gotten some stuff backwards? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys, I hope, later.